Hey, this is Pastor Bunjee Garrett, and I want to take this opportunity to present you with another word of encouragement. Now, as we consider all of the catastrophic calamities occurring in the world today, it's really no wonder that so many people are beginning to believe that we are in fact living in the last days. As a matter of fact, there was actually a recent survey commissioned by the Joshua Fund that helps us to see that nearly 40% of us here in America believe that we're watching the end of times unfolding right before our very eyes. For example, the first question on this survey was presented in this way, and I quote, "Do you agree or disagree that Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which has ignited the biggest land war in Europe since World War II, is one of the signs that Jesus spoke of in the Bible when he warned that there would be wars and rumors of wars in the last days before his return?" Now, with this question in mind, you might be surprised to learn that nearly 4 in 10 Americans said that this invasion is actually a fulfillment of biblical prophecy. That's right. Nearly 40% of Americans believe that we are now living in the last days. At the same time, 40.3% said they disagree with this, while close to 20% said they really don't know. And in light of these numbers, there should be no doubt in our minds that more and more Americans are actually beginning to believe that we're rapidly approaching the end of times. To further prove my point, let's consider the second question of this survey, which was stated in this way. Do you agree or disagree that the COVID pandemic that has caused more than 6 million deaths worldwide is one of the signs that Jesus spoke of in the Bible when he warned us that there will be severe plagues in the last days before his return? Now, again, you might be surprised to learn that 4 in 10 Americans once again agreed that the COVID-19 pandemic is another fulfillment of the prophecy that Jesus presented about the end of times. And while 41% said they disagree with this, nearly 19% confessed that they just don't know. And in light of this data, we again see that at least 40% of the U.S. population believes that we're currently living in the last days. And while it's true that the COVID-19 pandemic and the Russian invasion of Ukraine might in fact be evidence that we are living in the last days, it's also important to note that, this isn't the first time that we've witnessed wars, and this certainly isn't the first time we've heard of rumors of wars. And not only that, but this isn't the first time that we've faced a pandemic that has claimed the lives of millions and millions of people. And with all that being the case, we should take a moment to ask, well, why would we think that this war is evidence of the end times? And why should we think that this pandemic is proof that we're living in the last days? Well, with these questions in mind, we should take a moment to consider another point of proof, which has led me to believe that we are, in fact, we've entered into the end of times. First of all, I would appeal to a recent poll conducted by the Pew Research Center, which shows that the Christian population here in America has declined from 75% to 63% over the past decade. At the same time, the share of secular Americans is up by 10 percentage points from a decade ago. Simply put, the number of Americans who profess to be Christian, well, that number is steadily shrinking year by year. Not only that, but a recent American Family Survey also helps us to see that religious attendance has declined significantly in the past 2 years. According to this survey, the share of regular church goers is down by 6 percentage points from 34% in 2019 to 28% in 2021. And my guess is that number continues to drop. And listen, as we examine the data demographically, we also see that the decline in church attendance during the same period of time, well, it's about 10 percentage points between 2019 and 2021 for those under the age of 35 as well as those over the age of 65. Now, in light of these surveys, we can see then that the Christian church here in America is in a steady state of decline. And not only that, but many congregations today are now being led by hirelings who are fleecing the sheep as they lead the people of God astray. And just as Timothy warned, or just as Paul warned Timothy, I should say, the time has in fact come when the church is heaping up for themselves false teachers who are happy to tickle their itching ears. And the reason why is because, people don't want to hear the convicting sermons that stem from sound biblical doctrine. As a result, many churches are now being led into the great apostasy that Paul described in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. And so we see then that the evidence that we've entered into the end of times, it's not only based on wars and pandemics, But also the evidence that we've entered into the end of times, it's based on the fact that the great apostasy, which occurs before the rapture of the church, it's already begun. We're already watching this great apostasy happening. And while this is most certainly a compelling reason to believe that we've entered into the end of times, there are still yet many more reasons to think that we are in fact living in the last days. You see, it was just 2 weeks ago at the World Government Summit there in Dubai. That's when a technology entrepreneur and economist named Dr. Philippa Malmgren, she presented the proof that we are actually on the verge of a new monetary system, which is going to bring us one step closer to a global currency. Here's how she put it, and I quote, "What we're seeing in the world today, I think, is we are on the brink of a dramatic change where we're about to, and I'll say this boldly, we're about to abandon the traditional system of money and accounting and introduce a new one." She goes on and says this, the new accounting is what we call blockchain. It means digital. It means having a almost perfect record of every single transaction that happens in the economy, which will give us far greater clarity over what's going on. Wow. According to this globalist, we're on the brink of a dramatic change, which will affect every economy as global governments abandon the traditional system of money and accounting. And as I consider what she's saying, it sounds to me like we're about to witness the world being forced to embrace a digital form of currency. And I can't help but to wonder if this is the game plan of the globalists who are clearly attempting to collapse the U.S. economy. Meanwhile, Klaus Schwab, the leader of the World Economic Forum, who authored the book COVID-19, The Great Reset, months after the pandemic started. Yeah, that guy, the same guy who's been orchestrating the fourth industrial revolution, which includes a fusion of technologies that blur the line between the physical, digital, and biological spheres. Yeah, that guy. He's currently using his global influence over governments of the world so that every nation will enforce the implantation of a microchip, which will serve as a global health pass. And it's also going to be required for those who want to take part in that new digital economy. As a matter of fact, it was actually back in 2016 when Klaus Schwab informed us that this would all take place within 10 years. In other words, by 2026, this leader of the World Economic Forum, this leader is planning to implant every person with a microchip, which will then enable us to merge with the digital monetary system. And you better believe that they're engaging in a test run and global trials even right now as we speak. And within the next 4 years, according to his timeline, the Great Reset is scheduled to be complete as everyone is microchipped. Now, with all this in mind, I can't help but to remember the promise that the Lord Jesus presented in Matthew chapter 24. It's there where he declares, "Now learn this parable from the fig tree. When its branch has already become tender and puts forth leaves, you know that summer is near. So you also, when you see all these things, know that it is near at the doors. Assuredly, I say to you, this generation will by no means pass away till all these things take place." In other words, the generation that's here on the planet at the beginning of the last days, the generation that sees the wars and the rumors of the wars and the pandemics and the global currencies and all these sorts of things, the same generation that sees these things take place, that will be the same generation that's here to witness the end of the age. The reason why is because, listen, once that first prophetic domino falls, the rest of them will also fall in rapid succession. This was precisely the point that John was making in Revelation chapter 1. There he declares, "The revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave him to show his servants things which must shortly take place," or that word shortly could also mean rapidly. These things must rapidly take place. In other words, the events that we find in the book of Revelation, they weren't going to shortly take place after the resurrection of Jesus Christ. No, but that instead they would rapidly take place as soon as they started. We'll see a rapid succession of the events that are described in the book of Revelation. And as we consider everything happening in the world today, including global food shortages, the arming of Iran, and the current rise of anti-Semitism, there should be no doubt in our minds that we are currently witnessing the beginning of the end, and this will occur in rapid succession as the world is prepared for the rise of the Antichrist. With all that being the case, listen, It's not time for Christians to rest on their laurels. It's not time for us to be preoccupied with earthly things. It's time for Christians to get serious about their walk with the Lord. And while I realize that there are many who have already fallen away from their fellowship of faith, I encourage you, Christian, plug in. Get serious about serving the Lord. And in this way, we will become those believers who are fighting the good fight of faith, and all for the glory of God.